Right now I'm interviewing by way of telephone founder and chairman of Lovesac Incorporated, Shawn Nelson. Shawn, it's an honor to have you with us today.
Yeah, happy to be here. Excited.
Me too. I've been looking forward to this interview because I love to talk about successful products and businesses, and Lovesac is no exception. Shawn, your company is currently a major player in the home furnishing industry, but not so long ago, Lovesac was in its beginning stages. So let's go back to the year 1999. You were 23 years old and you had some small orders from family and friends, but you got a job offer in China and you were thinking about closing Lovesac. Your friends urged you to keep going, so you decided to go to one last trade show for a day to see what would happen. And the end result was no one bought anything. Shawn, tell us about that day.
Yeah, so we had been making sacks for a while for friends in college as we were, making a small business of it, and never really made any profits, never made any money, just enough to buy more fabric and stay in business. And then we went to this trade show almost for me to feel good about closing this business that I had been running for a couple of years. I felt like, I needed to move on, get a real job, so to speak. And before I did, I had this looming suspicion that, just maybe there's some way that we could sell a lot of these things. And, I had to kind of muster up the funds to go to this trade show in Chicago where I could be put in front of other companies to buy a bunch of our product. And we were all excited, and we spent all this money to get out there and set up this booth, and everybody loved it. Everybody thought it was the coolest thing ever. They could do the Chicago Bulls sack or the Coca-Cola sack or what have you, but nobody bought anything. And so I came back to our little Lovesac factory and was kind of now seriously contemplating closing shop and getting a real job. And then the phone rang as I was stuffing a sack one day, and it was the Limited 2. And this big company that sells stuff for little girls, and they said, "Hey, we saw you at the show, and we would love to order 12,000 little Lovesacks for Christmas."
Wow, so that's a big order.
Yeah, it was huge. It was beyond huge. It was too big for us to make in our little foam shredder factory. So we set out to build a big factory and try and make this thing happen, and that's really how the whole business got started.
Okay, so you went to another trade show in order to buy the fabric to complete this really huge order. And when you finally found the fabric that you needed, the merchant was asking too much, but you saw a box with the address of the material's Chinese manufacturer. The address was in Chinese, but it didn't matter because you could read Chinese. That's definitely a helpful skill to have. So you decided to go to China and buy from the manufacturer directly.
Yeah, so I, just in my own life had learned Chinese, and that allowed me to find this fabric that was way too expensive in the States because I could read the Chinese on the box from the guy who was trying to sell it to me, and flew over there, walked into the fabric mill and said, "I need 30,000 yards of this to make these sacks for the Limited 2. And I said it in English because I had never done a deal over in China like that. I was kind of nervous, and the people in the factory, they said sure, they quoted me a price, and it was way too high, and then they started talking amongst themselves about how much that fabric really cost to manufacture. In Chinese, they were saying this, and I could understand them, of course, and so I knew that they could hit my target price, so I just sat there and negotiated for 3 days, and finally they came down and said, okay, we'll do it. We're not making any money, and I knew that they were telling the truth, and so I shook their hand and made the deal, and then they said, we just need, we're ready to go, we just need a $65,000 deposit to get started.
Wow.
And I took a step back and gulped and said, no problem, and went back to my hotel room and called the client and told them I needed a $65,000 deposit to get started, and they laughed at me and told me that, they were this big company and they didn't do deposits, and I said, well, we're Lovesac, and I've never done a deal without a deposit, which was true.
Yeah.
I'd never really done a deal. And so they, anyway, after some cajoling, they wired me $65,000 to my credit union account, and I spent their money in China, and so now I was committed. I had to deliver a final product.
Well, you got the ball rolling and your dream started to take off. If it had been me, I would have been really happy that I could pay them, but honestly, I would have had a lot of anxiety about other things, like
Yeah.
the quality of their craftsmanship.
Well, yeah. So that was just a deposit to get started, but all they were doing was sewing the empty sacks, and so I still had this in the United States. I had to build a factory to stuff 12,000 little sacks in a period of just a couple of months, and the equipment we had certainly wouldn't do it, and me and my couple buddies couldn't do it, so I set about trying to build a factory, a sack factory, and along the way, I basically sent out every credit card offer that I got in the mail, and got them all back, and began spending my money on factory equipment, and from there it was just a matter of getting enough people. We hired a bunch of actually temp laborers at the time, and friends, and got enough people to run the factory, and stuffed 12,000 little sacks. We worked day and night and day around the clock pretty much, ran double shifts, and finished the order.
Wow. I bet it felt good to be able to take a breath, but I understand that there wasn't much to celebrate about afterwards.
Yeah, so that's the funny thing. I had been so focused on trying to finish this $250,000 order that put us in business that when we shipped out the last truck, I realized, I have this factory now. I own all this equipment, and I don't have any customers. So I had not been out selling. I had been in the factory just trying to make that work. And so I scrambled, and we went to it was October, and we went to the big furniture stores and said, look how cool, these giant sacks, they come shrunken down, and you can rip the cover off. And they all laughed at us and told us that it would never work. The sacks are too heavy, too expensive. No one would want our logo in their house. So we basically stepped back, and my cousin said, well, why don't we open our own store? So this time we maxed out his credit cards, and we bought the neon sign and the carpet and the paint, and we built the first Lovesac store, and it worked. We were afraid people would kind of laugh at us next to the Gap and Abercrombie and Fitch, but we sold 1, then 2, then 4, and hundreds of sacks later, we started selling franchises. We started growing and opening more locations, and Lovesac has changed a lot since those days. The first store, it was just basically sacks on the floor with a couch in the corner and a big screen TV to kind of show people what these could look like in their house. But people kept trying to buy this couch, and that we had there just on display. And so I wanted to sell it, but we couldn't really keep it in stock in our tiny little back room, and we couldn't really keep a matching set in stock, of course, in different colors because they were just too big. So I began a 3-year endeavor to take a sofa and shrink it down like we do our Lovesacs. We suck all the air out of them and put them in a duffel bag. Along the way, in trying to change the way that you build a sofa, we invented a product called Sactionals, which we've patented now. We have 4 patents on it with 2 more pending. And it is an extremely modular sofa that packs up very small, can be shipped anywhere, can be taken home easily. You can put different covers on, furry covers, leather covers, whatever you want. And this invention, it took a long time to perfect, but now it is most of our sales at Lovesac. We sell more Sactionals than sacks. And we've evolved from selling giant saxophone to my college buddies into a pretty serious home decor business that sells people their entire living room, TV room, home theater setup. And so we have a really broad audience. We've tried, as we've become a more serious furniture company selling people, thousands of dollars of seating, we've tried to keep our sense of humor and keep it weird and stay very youthful and have a good time doing it.
That's really important, and I noticed that you're approachable, which is really nice. A lot of times when businesses get big, the president becomes like the Wizard of Oz and hides behind a curtain.
No, I'm just out and about, just trying to make this thing work. I visit every Lovesac store every year. I meet all the people and do training myself. I, write my own blog and talk to customers and have, lots of great friends on Facebook. And so I'm actually really pride myself on trying to not only myself be approachable, but also Lovesac. Just be a really down-to-earth company. I mean, look, I began cutting up fabric on my mom's basement floor, and it's not something that is easily forgotten. And so I'm very grateful to our customers for helping us get to where we're at. And I actually feel that in a big way, Lovesac's just beginning. I mean, I truly believe that, over the next decade or so, Lovesac will become $1 billion brand. And I'm excited to be a part of that.
Shawn, if you had to redo something that you've done in the past, what would that be?
I've done a lot and get asked that question from time to time. Even though the story that I just told you is exciting and it was fun and it led to where I am today. And the biggest mistake I made was back in that first store. To be honest with you, I didn't know in my early 20s that there are investors out there who have tons of money that need to put their money into businesses in order to make their money grow. Otherwise, it will just sit there in the bank. And they're looking for businesses that have a great concept so that they can put that money to work. And yet, I was out there maxing out credit cards, which worked for me, and it got me into business. But if I could do it over again, I wouldn't have opened that second store right away. I wouldn't have franchised right away. I would have sat there in the corner and watched. And I would have tried to figure out exactly what it was that was working. Why was this store making money? Was it the product? Did we just choose a great location? Is it the city that I'm in and the people that are there that happen to like this product? Is it the way the light comes through the window? Is it the carpet, the paint, and the decor? What is it that's working? I would have taken all those things that are working, and I would have then very carefully invested in just a second store, and then taken my time there, and then very carefully made the third store even better than the second and first store. And at some point, instead of having to run out and be paranoid about opening up in every mall that I could get so that nobody else copied me, I would have just taken my time, built a very carefully well-run business, and I'm sure that these various venture capitalists and private equity investors would have been very interested in giving me plenty of money to then grow the business myself without having to sell franchises and without having to stretch ourselves too thin and growing too fast. And so you'll hear it all the time. If you're a student of business, don't grow too fast. And there's nothing wrong with growing. There's nothing wrong with growing fast, but it needs to come after you're certain you know exactly why it is your concept works, and after you've lined up the financing to allow you to grow like that.
Shawn, you hit a hot button here. Okay, you were a young guy when your business started to grow exponentially, and Lovesac was yours. It was your baby. And in your mind, or in anyone else's mind, when they start a business, they think that if they get money from an investor, he'll take too much control and make bad decisions.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on that? Is what I'm saying true?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. The catch there is, if you want the company to grow, and it requires money to grow that company, whether it's to open the next location or to buy enough product to then sell or what have you, you really have two choices. You either put the money into it yourself, which means, by the way, that you have to have the money, or you take money from someone else who then gets to have an opinion because they invested in you and they've invested in the company. They bought the right to have an opinion. So just like choosing a good factory, you got to choose really good investors that you like, that you believe what they believe in, and then you got to cross your fingers and hope that they don't turn into something else later on. But another way to look at it is, I think young entrepreneurs often get, just like as I was, hung up on their baby. Keep in mind that if you are blessed enough to be an entrepreneur and be young, you might have more babies. So try and grow your business in the smartest way possible to make some money on your first one or your second one, because maybe by your third one, you can pay for it all yourself, and you don't need to listen to anybody else. But there's often not anything wrong with having to listen to smart people who come your way, as long as they're smart people that you can get along with, because nobody has a corner of the market on good ideas and good business thinking. It's there's a lot of smart people out there that can help you.